Welcome, everyone, to the Tao Salon of Statistics. This is our space for exploring complex ideas, not with force, but with a certain clarity and elegance. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful technique that helps us see the hidden connections in our data. Okay, let's start with a really simple-sounding question. It's pretty easy to ask if one thing affects another. But, reality is rarely that simple, right? We often need to know how two different things work together to create an outcome. And that's exactly the kind of puzzle we're tackling today. So how do we even begin to answer a question like that? Well, the tool for the job is something called a two-way ANOVA. It's a statistical method that's specifically designed to help us move beyond looking for just one single cause so we can start to understand the whole picture. And you can really see the difference right here. A one-way ANOVA, that asks a pretty straightforward question. How does fertilizer affect growth? But a two-way ANOVA, it lets us ask a much richer question. How do fertilizer and watering schedules affect growth? See that? We're leveling up from one cause to two. So here's the more formal definition, but I want you to pay really close attention to those last couple of words. Act and interact. This is the whole ballgame. We're not just looking at two separate effects anymore. We're looking at how they might combine to create something totally new, something unexpected. The real power behind this technique, what makes it so useful, comes from its structure. It's built to answer three very specific, very important questions about our data. And really, this is the heart of the whole analysis. Let's break down how this works. First, we ask, does factor A, let's say our fertilizer, actually matter all by itself? Okay. Then, does factor B, the watering schedule, matter on its own? And then we get to the most exciting question of all. Do they interact? Is there some kind of special combined effect when you use a specific fertilizer with a specific watering schedule? And that interaction effect, that really is the magic of the whole thing. It's where the deepest, most valuable insights are usually hiding. It's how you discover that, say, fertilizer X is a super fertilizer, but only when you water the plants daily. If you water them weekly, it's useless. That's an interaction. All right, that's enough theory for now. Let's see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to walk through a classic example using a really well-known data set called tooth growth. So here's the setup. What we want to know is what affects tooth length in guinea pigs. We've got two factors we're testing. Factor A is the type of supplement they get. It's either orange juice or pure vitamin C. And factor B is the dosage, how much they get each day. And the process for doing this, it's a pretty logical, straightforward four-step journey. First, you get your data ready. Then you run the analysis, then you check to make sure your work is statistically sound, and finally, the most important part, you figure out what it all means. Now, this third step, checking assumptions, is absolutely critical. It might sound a little technical, but really it's just our quality control. We're just making sure the data doesn't have any weird quirks that could give us a totally misleading answer. And here's the best part. You don't have to be a math genius to do this. The beauty of modern software is that it handles all the heavy lifting, all the complex calculations. That lets us focus on what really matters, figuring out what the results are actually telling us. So what did our analysis find? A significant interaction. And this is huge. It means you can't just say orange juice is better or a high dose is better. The real story is more interesting. The effect of the supplement actually depends on the dose it's given at. Now that is a powerful, actionable insight, and it's this kind of thinking that can totally change how you approach your work. Okay, this is where it all comes together. This is where we translate the stats into real-world strategy. Let's talk about how the logic of a two-way ANOVA can unlock smarter decisions in business, in marketing, or really any field where you're trying to figure out what works. I want to boil all of this down into three essential concepts. Three ways of thinking that you can take away from this and apply directly to your own challenges. So the first key conception, it's all about clarity. It's about using this type of analysis to cut through all the noise and find the true main drivers of your success. Right? This is about using those main effects to identify your heavy hitters. It helps you answer those big, direct questions with real confidence. Which marketing channel is actually moving the needle on sales? Which website layout gets more clicks? By isolating these main drivers, you find the signal in the noise. And now for the second conception, which builds right on top of the first. If finding your heavy hitters is step one, then step two is discovering how they work together to create something even more powerful. This is that magic we were talking about earlier. This is where you find those aha moments. This is how you discover that your new ad campaign is a runaway success, but only with customers under 30. Or that a new product feature is a total game changer for new users, but your longtime customers are ignoring it. These are the powerful synergies that simpler, one-cause analysis will always miss. And finally, our third, and maybe the most crucial conception of all. It's not as flashy as the others, but it is the foundation that every single good decision is built on: having trust in your data. Look, this might seem like a boring technical step, but it is so fundamental. Checking your statistical assumptions is your quality control. It's the step that ensures the insights you're about to act on are real. It protects you and your business from making big bets based on flawed data or just random noise. So, to wrap it all up, the key here is to move beyond looking for single causes. First, identify your main drivers so you know what works. Second, uncover those hidden interactions to understand why and when it works. And third, make sure you're building all of this on a foundation of data you can actually trust. Which leads to the one question you should be asking about your own work: what hidden interactions are shaping the results you see every single day?